Simon,
Hi.
hello.
Hello.
Why are businesses so poor at making decisions?
Great one to go straight into, isn't it? The honest answer is that organizations weren't built to decide. During my career, I've done a bit of research on stuff like this. And when we talked about a few things, this popped up. Organizations aren't built to decide. They were built to coordinate. And it's kind of irrelevant the size of the organization that we're talking about. The whole architecture of hierarchy, committees, sign-off chains, the governance, I guess, exists to slow decisions down, spread the risk, and protect individuals from accountability. So the classic, well, let's take this to a meeting line is always a way of diffusing ownership, and it doesn't accelerate a resolution. I can go into a little bit more about that if you'd
Yeah.
like.
Well, it's interesting.
So
Isn't it? It's a bit like, when you go to like a conference or you go and listen to a speaker or something and they have a question time. It's just made me think of this. Someone asks a question. The first thing they generally always say is, "That's a great question." And what they're
yeah,
really doing is buying time to figure out what their answer is going
yes.
to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was at InfoSec, speaking at InfoSec a couple of weeks ago, the big cybersecurity show in London, and I spoke at the event, but I sat in on many talks around AI, and some of the questions that were being asked were asked by people far more informed than people that were delivering the presentation, and it
Yeah.
made for some very uncomfortable Q&As. I would say, think the general business public are far more switched on to what's going on in AI than any one individual vendor. And a vendor generally cares about what AI can do for their product or their solution to help them differentiate themselves to another. And it means that they lose sight of the bigger picture. So yeah, some of those questions are, funnily enough, I wasn't talking about AI at all, but the majority of those conversations were around AI, and a lot of people said, that's a great question. So I thought it was quite interesting.
Yeah, no, I was at AI Summit a couple of weeks ago, similar sort of setup really. And it's an interesting point you
Yeah.
make because all the vendors that were giving the talks were basically painting a picture that everyone is miles ahead, everyone's using these fantastic AI tools and AI
Yeah.
empowered decision making and all this kind of stuff. And everyone sat at in the audience was very much, well, if they are, I'm a really long way behind. So I'm
Yeah.
assuming that that's not quite true. They were seeing right through it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, because I guess so. Because the history really of what we've been through as an economy, as businesses, as professional
Yeah.
services, is that expertise has been the moat, hasn't it? So if you know more than the other person or the other
Yeah.
organization, the other team, you're generally speaking going to be seen
Mm.
as number one. That's going to be your differentiator. But really, we've entered a world now where, well, what I mean, everyone knows everything, don't they? Or at least have access to all the information in all the world at the touch of a button, and it's distilled in a way that makes sense. So if that's not the differentiator anymore, this is where
Yeah.
the ability to make a decision is really helpful, right?
I think my expansion on your short line there about everybody knows everything is I think everybody has access to information that makes them think they know everything. So it's in the information is out there. You've got to ask, even just asking Google, for instance, you've got to ask it the right question to give a really relevant answer to the question you're posing or the search that you're putting in. And this becomes even more, it becomes even more delicate, I think, when it comes to prompts that we're putting into AI. There are, it's easy to put here's my name, here's my LinkedIn, build me a CV. And they'll go away and build your CV, and you'll send your CV in and think that you've done a fantastic job. And the trouble is 250 other applicants to the same job have done exactly the same thing. And the only difference is the name and the career history. Everything, formatting's the same, everything. So you need to be able to get the right information to know what you're talking about is the prompts are key these days.
So how much wasted effort do you think there is then floating around with people just working on the wrong things? Obviously, because we can do everything, we can just turn our LinkedIn into a CV, or to use your
Yeah.
example, it doesn't necessarily mean we should. And if
No.
you kind of combine the ability to generate work and operate at pace with the inability to make sensible decisions, there must be a lot of
Yeah.
wasted effort going on there, and that is only scaling.
Yeah. I think the challenge that we've got is, so again, I'm a bit of a closet historian, I think is the best way of putting it. I look at things in the past and understand the past to help me understand how to make informed decisions for the future. It takes a lot of that away, or is trying to take a lot of that away. If we look at competitive advantage, for instance, competitive advantage for the last 200 years, if you didn't have a competitive advantage, then you were dead in the water. And information has been that competitive advantage. Understanding, your customers' buying patterns under the market trend, for instance, the supplier's capacity to take on a new solution. If you know all that better than anybody else, then you're in the best position. AI kind of collapses all of that these days. It's not where it needs to be right now, but it's getting there. When every organization, as you said, when every organization can kind of synthesize a vast data sets, they can generate market analysis and surface insights in seconds, just at the click of a button. The field is flattened and everyone's equalized. And then that information simply becomes a commodity, like everything else with, for instance, commodity. Everyone has it, so nobody can use it as a competitive advantage to win it. Does that make sense? Um, so the competitive advantage, it's got to migrate upstream to a question and then downstream to an action. And I'll just expand on that. And I say this because I had this exact conversation on Wednesday with somebody about the commodity of information these days. So when we look at upstream, you've got, who's asking the right question and what are we choosing to look at to get to the right decision? And then downstream, it's who can actually do something with the answer. So the client, and also within your own organization. If we understand what the client's challenge is, who within our organization can we turn to fix it? And that is probably more important than having all of this other commercial information, because there's no such thing as commercially sensitive information anymore, because everyone and their brother puts information into AI. LLMs, so Claude and ChatGPT, are riddled with data breaches. And I don't mean that Claude and ChatGPT have been breached. I mean the companies that are using them to gain their competitive advantage are putting sensitive information about their own business into a platform that anybody else using the correct prompts, which is something I talked about just now, using the correct prompts, they can extract that information. To me, that's crazy. I've worked in data and email security for way over 30 years. And I speak a lot at events about ensuring data is protected. And then you have organizations, the board level within organizations, they're sitting there and they're going, right, we want AI. We want AI. And nobody below them understands what they want. All they understand below them is what, if we want AI, we need to be prepared to understand what the risk of that is. What is the risk element of having AI within our organization? And that's a whole other topic. The whole risk side of AI within an organization is another topic. But I think it's clearly understanding that information, as you say, it's available to anybody now. And that somebody with a little bit of information can be dangerous, especially when it's the wrong information. And that's a danger for everybody.
I mean, when Gen AI landed and a lot of these tools popped up, I guess the competitive advantage that was sold to us was, while everyone can do the same thing, you can now do it
Yeah.
faster. They're trying to sell us pace and volume as a competitive advantage. But again, Everyone's kind of got access to the same tools, and you must have come up
Yeah.
on this in your world, when you're kind of looking at how sales teams function and how to, work through proposals and that kind of thing. I mean, all those kind of first
Mm.
level, first generation AI tools. Well, we'll just write your proposal for you. We'll do it really quickly, so you cut out all this time. So if that
Yeah.
isn't, if the information itself isn't competitive advantage, if the pace isn't, if the volume isn't, the capacity
Yeah.
isn't, because everyone's in the same
Yeah.
spec, where is the competitive advantage now?
The competitive advantage is what the warm blood assets do with that information and how they action on it. So warm blood assets, you and I, we talk about in Arthurian, we talk about cold blood assets, which is the tech, and predominantly AI is becoming more and more. And the warm blood assets are the true decision makers. If you take the bid no bid scenario that we have in our platform, and I don't want this to come across as a sales pitch, but have a look at it; it's great. But if you look at the bid no bid scenario functionality within the Bid Manager Pro platform, what that's doing, there's a number of things, but the single biggest thing that it's doing is saving time. And the reason it's saving time is because you've already fed it all of the information that it needs to know. So rather than taking days, weeks, and sometimes on some of the big tenders, months to make a decision, just to make a decision, by the way, of whether to bid, no bid, can take a huge amount of time, huge amount of resource. And what gets lost a lot is the cost involved in doing that. And there's a huge amount of overhead in deciding whether to bid, no bid. Now, if you put a tender into our platform, it can tell you within 30 seconds whether to bid, no bid or not. And one of the other, I'd say, key fundamentals for using AI for that type of question, do we bid, no bid, is that it takes out all emotion. I was sat in an aircraft yesterday, and I just happened to be sat next to somebody who the whole plane was going up to Newcastle that were full of IT guys. It was bizarre. And I was having a chat with the guy next to me, much to my wife's annoyance, I must add. But I was having a chat with the guy next to me about AI, and we were talking about the decision making in the sales process. And the word that came up more and more is emotion. And if with a lot of bid no bid, a lot of emotion goes into it, because if you are the account exec for that client who's put a tender out, and you've got somebody within your organization saying, we're going to no bid that, and can't give a coherent response as to why, that account exec is going to lose his mind. And it's going to be, no, we've got to bid on it. We've got to bid on it. We've got to bid on it, without thinking about the time, energy and cost involved in doing that, even though you're not going to win that bid. I worked in bid management, and I ran a lot of sales teams over my career in cybersecurity, and I headed up a lot of bid teams and worked in a lot of bid teams. And I'll be frank, I was one of those emotional guys for quite a long time. That were, this bid has come out, it's a multi-million pound tender, and we need to bid on it. We need to be in it. And I'm being told by the technical guys and also finance guys, there's no point in us doing that. So without them being able to give me a coherent reason why and justify that decision, I'm not happy as an individual, and my team isn't happy as a commercial organization. When you've got the ability to say that this is your bid weighting of 70, but also these are your win points on this bid process. These are your weak areas. These are the things that you need to focus on if you want to bid on it, and then add additional information and resubmit it for the bid no bid analysis. When you can coherently have that conversation, it takes all emotion out. Fortunately, us warm blood assets, we're not very good at that. That's all. And that's where AI comes in. It takes all the emotion out completely, and it makes fact-based decisions. It doesn't make a decision based on, well, it might work, it might not, this could be a good idea. It will take a data set that you've given it, and it will make a decision based on that data set. It's that simple. And that's the same for a lot of AI. It can only work on the information that it's given. And then, of course, that opens up a whole new conversation of good data in, good data out, bad data in, bad data out. So the sheer volume of data, of bad data that is going into the OpenAI platforms is vast. Deliberately so in some circumstances. People are deliberately putting bad data in, and then people are asking prompts based on that data that is nothing to do with them, that they don't own, they have no control over, and trusting the information that's being given to them. That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, they always spider out from these conversations.
Yeah, they do, don't they? And I'm really bad at this, so I apologize to you and the audience for that.
No, that's what makes it interesting. So would you say then this is more about, it's less about sort of generating content or even output? It's not really generating output. It's more, is it generating decisions? Is that what the AI is doing here? Is it generating a decision?
I wouldn't say it's generating a vision. I think it's helping, it's steering us to be better informed about the decisions that we're making. Yes, it can make decisions for you, but there's no question about that. Whether you decide to act on those is a different thing. But if we're talking about making decisions, maybe use the word recommend. It's recommending that we do something rather than making decisions for us. InfoSec, again, a couple of weeks ago, is a really good example of that. There was a vast majority of organizations there that were telling you that AI was going to reduce your risk. It was going to stop breaches. It was going to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C. I don't think we're in a position yet with AI where we can confidently sell that as a pitch. Plus, of course, everybody's doing it. So again, you've got no competitive advantage in that at all, because if everybody says their solution does it, all you're doing is deciding what brand to buy. You know, there's 200 different brands of washing up liquid. They all do the same thing. They wash dishes, and they all create bubbles and soap, but it's the human that's actually washing the dishes. It's how they use that washing up liquid. Strange analogy, I know, but it kind of makes sense to my strange mind.
No,
So,
I think it's a really good one. I think a lot of these brands really lean into this trust argument, don't they? I mean, and whether that when essentially everything's the same, washing up liquid is a great example because they're all the same. Why would
they're
you
all the
buy
same.
Fairy over something else? Well, it's
Yeah,
because Fairy has really lent into the fact that it's kind and it's safe and it's good for the environment, and it's safe for babies or whatever to
yeah,
engage with. So it's a trust factor. That's why you're buying it.
yeah. And interestingly, that's what my talk was about at InfoSec. We were talking about trust, and we did, to use your phrase, we did spider out slightly into some Q&A around AI and the word trust in that. Even though I was talking about email security, we ended up getting on about AI. Anyway, let me go back to the question you posed. AI, I guess, it's brilliant at certain things. It's tireless. Again, it's emotionally uninvested. And I guess you wouldn't refuse to listen to your best advisor in the world just because they're not signing off a document. And all they're doing is giving you advice, and you use that advice to help you give you the most informed decision. Because obviously being an advisor doesn't carry any consequences. All you're doing is advising. What you do with that information is completely up to you. An advisor doesn't also know generally everything within your context, and to put a phrase in, can be confidently wrong sometimes, and which is a phrase I've always quite liked. When somebody's giving you an answer to something, they can be very confidently wrong and not realize it, by the way, and not deliberately so. So
Yeah.
the real question isn't, can AI make decisions for you? It's, can AI recommend what we do? And it does. It's already doing that in a number of factors in our lives, and we are acting upon it. So around that, it's not about, can it make decisions for you? Can it recommend things? You've got to take it to the next level of, if we're taking that information that we're being given by AI, then who is ultimately accountable for the recommendation that is generated from that information? Generally, what if it, and that accountability generally only comes if something goes wrong. Accountability is great when everything works.
Yeah.
People will put their hands up straight away and go, yeah, that was me. I was great. That was my idea. When it works. When it doesn't work, it's a little bit harder for people to put their hands up. So I don't think it's a technology question. I think it's a governance question, and governance is something that most organizations still haven't answered around AI yet. And I think, again, that alludes back to something I mentioned earlier, boards, the boardroom decision to implement AI into an organization, is great at the high level, but when it's down in the trenches with people actually being the people implementing it, it's a different conversation altogether. So
Yeah.
I think there's a different point that we probably need, it's worth raising, around that. So AI recommendations will likely be better than human ones on average across many categories of decision. Statistically, still can't get my words out this morning. Statistically, there'll be less bias, they'll be more consistent, and the responses will be better calibrated. The human resistance to this isn't irrational. It's partly about identity, partly about accountability, and partly about the fact that better on average is hold comfort when it's your specific situation, in that particular situation. So I think it's being able to understand how to interpret the recommendations that AI is giving. And I would say we're at too early a stage to let AI make a 100% decision for us. And I know that sounds counterproductive given that I own an AI based bid management platform that gives you bid, no bid scenarios. But what I'm saying is exactly what we do. It doesn't tell you, yes, you should bid on this. It is telling you, based on the information that I have available to me, this is the percentage weighting of us recommending that you should bid. What you then decide to do with that information is completely up to you.
It's really interesting nuance, isn't it? I think we've seen this for years in other areas where AI is actually involved, but people don't think of it as such. So if you think about, I say trivial, like going onto Netflix and it recommending you what show to watch next. Okay, that's AI making that recommendation based on your
Yep.
viewing habits and what's popular elsewhere in your demographic, all that kind of stuff. And you may click on it and it's rubbish, right? So no great shakes. I've lost 20 minutes and and I know that I don't trust that recommendation. Or
Yep.
another one is like Google Maps, for example. We all use Google Maps
Yep.
or the equivalent. I want to get from A to B. Don't know how to get there, or I want to keep an eye on the traffic. So reroute me around the traffic. Go Google Maps, and I will blindly follow you to the ends of the earth and back if you tell me which way to go because you found a faster route. That's
Yes.
broadly true. Most people do. Occasionally, you know that it's taking you down some one-way farm track, and like you don't fancy it, so you stick on the main route and get it to reroute again. But most of the time, you've taken the recommendation on those edge cases and you've done something different. But most of the time, you just blindly follow the decisions that's been made on your behalf, and that is basically accepted now. There are very few people in modern driving spheres that won't blindly follow their sat nav now, which is why there's road signs saying, don't follow your sat nav down this road, for example, in various places in the
Yeah,
country.
absolutely.
But it has a knock-on effect as well, doesn't it? Where there's an atrophy of skills involved there. There are now very few people, particularly if you became a driver in the era of sat nav, that
Mm.
can read a map. And there are very few people that first time you go somewhere new will just kind of follow their nose and wing it, following road signs, which means it takes them much longer to figure out actually how to get there. They're always following sat nav for the coming days, weeks, months until they pluck up the courage to no longer follow the sat nav anymore and do it alone. So that skill, that orientation skill, that ability to read a map, that route
Yep.
planning skill, that has atrophied over the years, and that's the risk, isn't it? Because it feels inevitable that as trust goes up in this incredible technology, that we will
Yep.
just defer to it more and more and more, which means, and we'll have great results 97, 98, 99% of the time. But then the skill behind that will atrophy to the extent that you can't do those tasks effectively anymore. And this is potentially a real issue within sales teams, yes, but leadership more generally, right? If we're being bombarded by recommendations, and most of them are good or seem good,
Yeah.
we start, or there's a danger that we start to be unable to make decisions
Yeah.
without them, or to see what's good and what's bad at all.
But we've become desensitized to the recommendations that we've been made, and like, as you say, we follow them blindly. If we're being given recommendations, and the first 4, 5, 6 recommendations that we've been given, they all hit the point, then as humans, our psyche is that the way that we work is we will then start to literally blindly follow those decisions. We won't look for additional sources of information to back up the data that we're being given. If we're being told one thing, and Google Maps is a great example, and I am probably one of the worst exponents of that, whereby I was driving to a particular sporting event probably 2 months ago now, and I followed the sat nav blindly, even when I got to a country, it wasn't even a road, a track where the bushes were overgrown on either side, and the grass in the middle, it was just mud, and it was grass in the middle, and I was driving my little 2-seater car up this hill thinking, this can't be the place. This can't be the place. The sat nav is saying that that's where it is. So I followed it blindly because 9 times out of 10, Google Maps is right. And I then had to do a 75-point turn and try and get that down. And that's a different story. Yeah, you follow it blindly. But I think the other thing to look at as well is that we are still very, very much in our infancy around AI. And but the challenge that we've got is that, so I go and speak at a lot of schools. I do a lot of STEM talks and talk about, safety of the internet and kids growing up. And up until a couple of years ago, one of the things I talked about was that, and I actually gave this talk to a lot of parents and teachers as well, because I think it was more important, which was up until a couple of years ago, where we've kind of gone into the next generation of kids. But up until a couple of years ago, they were the first generation of human beings to understand or not understand life before the internet. They didn't understand what going to a library meant to do research for your homework. They didn't understand what reading a map was. And that's why I'm a big advocate for DFE, by the way, is you actually have to read a map, but you're not allowed to use your phone. Those kids were thrust into the world of the internet. The world is in your pocket. It's on this little device that gives you all of that data that you've ever wanted. And that's partly, that was a great thing. But then you've also got the dark side of all of that, of always being connected, always having access to information. And then going back to our point here, you start to blindly believe what you're being told through all of this information. So then we leap ahead to the birth of AI in its general form as it is right now. And you and I, this generation, I'm sorry, but I'm putting you in the same generation as me. I'm a lot older, but this generation of adult, we're the kids in this. We're learning this. It's in its infancy. My kids are growing into it. One of them uses AI within his work. He works in education, uses AI all the time, to arrange classrooms and make sure teachers are in the right place. He has a piece of software that is completely AI driven, but it works for him 99% of the time, but not always, not 100%. It works 99% of the time. And sometimes 2 teachers will turn up in the same classroom at the same time to teach the same lesson because the platform hasn't worked. So you are learning. The danger of just blindly accepting recommendations and or decisions that are being made by AI right now. We have to understand, and we have to accept and agree that AI is only going to respond based on the information that it's given. And whether that information is good or bad is where the real crux of the power of AI comes in.
Okay. So are you saying then that it's really important for us as leaders, at least, if not everybody, to analyze every recommendation that comes out, to never blindly follow anything, because we need to own the decision? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I think enabling AI to enable you to blindly make decisions is not the best path right now. It's too early. We're too early in the growth of AI. For, it's been around what, 5, 10 years maximum. In the current build that it's in, looking at things like Claude and ChatGPT and other open AI platforms, and using custom built LLMs for certain types of technology, blindly accepting the recommendations right now, my opinion is that we're too early for that. We should be analyzing the decisions. Should we analyze every decision? Maybe yes, maybe no. But I think that's going to come down to each individual organization, each individual within that organization, because some decisions are more important than others. And we spoke a few months ago at an event when we met, and you made a comment which stuck with me actually since we had that conversation. And I'll be honest, I plagiarized it a couple of times, which was, yeah, as AI grows, the more menial tasks within an organization will become redundant for humans, because they're the tasks that they'll be taken on by AI. And I think that's a really important point that you made when we were having that conversation. And then if you think about that's today, if you look at the growth of technology over the last 200 years, and then the growth of technology in the last 50 years, and the growth of technology in the last 5 years, it hasn't been a trajectory like this. It has been like this, a huge hockey stick. The speed of the growth of technology has grown significantly over the last 50 years. Our acceptance of that technology has been, I would say, has run along a parallel line of that growth. And I think we're in a place right now where, if we're not careful, we're going to have a third parallel line along that hockey stick growth of blindly allowing it to make all decisions for us. And we're not in that place yet, in my opinion. I think we are quite a way off from having enough. We're too far away from where we should be trusting AI to make those decisions for us. Look at self-driving cars. They are feats of technical magnificence. They will keep you in a lane. They will adjust your speed based on the distance of the car in front of you. They will brake for you. But you've got to bear in mind that those types of technologies, again, a strange analogy, but you need to understand the decisions that these things are going to make. I'll give you a really dark analogy. You're driving a fully self-automated car. We won't have a particular brand because they all do it now. And I gave this analogy, by the way, when I was asked to go onto LBC and do an interview around AI and self-driving cars, because it was some research that I was doing at the time. And you're sat in your self-driving car, and it's taking you from point A to point B. During that journey, you're driving down a road. On one side of the road are a row of terraced houses, a path, parked cars along the side of the road. You're in the road. On the other side of the road, there's a sheer cliff, 500-foot cliff. In your car, you have you, your wife, your 2 children, and a dog. A ball rolls out in front of the road. A small child runs out in front of your car. Your car needs to make a decision if it's doing everything for you. It needs to decide, have I got enough time to brake? If I have, fine. If I haven't got enough time to brake, what is the best case scenario? Is the best case scenario that I hit the small child, or I veer off to the right and take my family down a 500-foot cliff. What, now that is a decision that you're asking AI to make. Are we ready to enable AI to make that decision for us yet? I don't think we are.
It's the extreme version of the one you started with, isn't it? When you were talking
Yeah,
about,
exactly.
the emotion involved in bid, no bid decision. We're more comfortable with the AI making a data based decision based on some rubric on whether or not we should bid for a contract. Because the emotion involved for us would be, well, I like that guy, or I like that brand, or I've spent some time on it, therefore I'm going to bid on it, irrespective of
Yeah,
anything. Now, it's an emotive, instinct-based decision about whether or not you drive up a cliff or kill the small child. But
yeah,
AI is just going to make some evidence-based fact based on whatever rubric it's been given to make that decision, and we're
yeah.
not prepared. It's almost like we don't want to make the decision. So therefore, we'll just wait and
No,
see what the universe gives us. We're happy with that
I think,
than we
do you
are
know, I
with
think you're
someone
absolutely
having
spot on there,
decided.
actually. Yeah. Yeah. And it's and again, it goes back to that point of it's making decisions based on the data that it has, and that's the same for all AI based technology. It's making decisions. If it makes decisions, it's not going to make an emotive decision. Not yet. Emotion within AI, I think, will come within the next 7 to 10 years. We'll have far more emotion within AI. You see these AI based robots that are coming out of the Far East at the moment, and they are, again, technical feats of magnificent engineering, and I think they're astonishing the work that they're doing. But when they're trying to humanize them, and the one thing that they can't humanize is the emotion. And to their own admission, they can't humanize the emotion. So within AI, and that's going to be one of the trickiest things to do.
Let's play this forward then. So it's what, 5 years time ish. It's 2030. We're thinking about what a commercial team might look
Yeah,
like going forward. Your AI can analyze opportunities. It can research customers. It can qualify leads. It can draft responses. It can model what your potential outcome might be. It's going to give pretty good recommendations by then about what should be done. What's the role of the human? What does that team look like? How, if at all, does the agent in the AI need to be supported by the warm bodies in the room?
so I was asked a very similar question at InfoSec, actually. They worded it slightly differently, a little bit more aggressively than you did. So thank you for that. So I looked at three structural shifts, that I think are worth talking about. The first is the shape of the organization is going to change. I think there's no question that the shape of an organization is going to change. The value of large middle layers, people who exist primarily to synthesize information and escalate decision, middle management, I think that is going to be compressed. And if you're listening to this and you're in middle management, I apologize. We should have started, Rob, by saying I am very opinionated. And sometimes my opinion is my opinion, but that middle structure is going to compress. The scale up value is people who can ask better questions. And again, I've talked about this a lot around AI. It's being able to put the right prompts in. So people who can ask better questions, people who can execute with speed and judgment when those recommendations land, and people who can manage the accountability interface between AI and the action. I think they're going to be really important within an organization. I think they're going to be key to the success of the implementation of AI and the growth of that organization that are implementing AI. And then secondly, the nature of the strategy is going to change, I think, as well. If everyone has, kind of going back on what I talked about earlier, if everyone has the same analytical capability, the strategy becomes about the choices you're willing to make that the others aren't. And it sounds quite drastic, but in a business scenario, it's not as drastic as it sounds. So the courage and clarity of intent becomes the more differentiating factor than the analytical sophistication of everything. So being able to make those harder decisions, I think is going to be key. And then to go back on what we talked about just now, trust becomes the governing variable of all of this. Organizations are going to adopt AI decisioning at the speed that works for their organization, in which that speed is going to be built on how quickly they can take that trust and implement it to within their organization. And that's internally, that's with the regulators, because the regulators are all over AI at the moment, and they will continue to be so for some time. So, building that AI trust internally with the regulators and also with customers as well. Customers need to know that the decisions being made are going to be within the confines of, is it good for our customers? Not just, is it good for us as a business? The organizations that get ahead won't necessarily be the ones with the best models. I would say they'll be the ones that have the best governance around those models, the track record, the quality of the brand that they have, the fairy liquids of this world, the cultural, and culture is going to be a big thing in this, the cultural confidence that acting on AI recommendations faster than their competitors is going to give them somewhat of a competitive advantage. I think again, I can be quite provocative, I think, in some of the things I talk about around AI. Given that I am, as I said, I own Arthurian Labs. We are a 100% AI based platform. Nothing we do within our platform has any human touch whatsoever from our point. The only human touch is from the customer point that are using the platform to help with their no bid scenario, and then help with their draft writing of a response. All we do is harness the power and the capability of AI as it stands today. And that's only going to get better. So I think a really good analogy, I've got a meeting after this with my CTO and a couple of his dev team. They're the geniuses. They're the guys that understand AI way, way better than I do. And they know how to get the most out of it. When we launched the business, which was only in January, of course, 5th of January, we launched a business. And we're only 6 months in. We've got, quite a lot of customers. We've got double figure customers already. We've got recommendations, but more importantly, we're on version 5 of the platform, because things have changed in 6 months. My CTO he comes to me. We have a weekly catch up on a Friday, and it used to be, right, I've done this. I've made these changes. I've added this. Now the meeting starts with, right, what have you changed this week? Is my question. And the additional functionality that he puts in is phenomenal. But we put those additions in based on the feedback that we're getting from our customers. So warm blood assets that are using a cold blood asset come to us and tell us how it's going to make their lives better if we are able to do A, B, C, X, Y, Z. Can we do this quicker? The one last week, can we add AI generated photographs of our business? So three business people around a desk, and in the background, there's the branding pull-up banner of our company. And my CTO went away, spoke to one of his team, and I kid you not, within 30 minutes, he came back and said, what do you think of this? And then within 2 hours, we'd uploaded the capability of that into our platform. You're never ever going to get that sort of speed of response with anything other than AI capability. But it's the warm blood assets that have that capability to harness the power of AI. And we're in the world of business, we're in for some huge changes within our businesses. And the ones that are really going to succeed are the ones that are going to be able to embrace those changes. And the ones that are going to fall by the wayside are the ones that don't. Again, history is a great storyteller and mirror in where we're at today. Weaving looms, or companies that used to do weaving by hand in the 18th and 19th century and didn't move to weaving machines as quickly as others, they were the ones that lost out. And it's the same as we go through today and the future. Those that are the quickest to adopt and adapt to the latest technologies to the benefit of their organization, their people, and their customers are the ones that are going to succeed.
Mm, yeah, really, really interesting, fascinating answer as well. Because I mean, it's slightly unfair to ask you a question like what's going to happen in 5 years when we're all writing the future in pencil right now, as they say.
Yeah, I know, right?
But
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, I mean,
The future is
with that,
tomorrow. That's the thing, Rob. The future is tomorrow. Yeah, asking me what's happening in 5 years. Yeah, it's really unfair. Asking me what's happening tomorrow is unfair. You know, there is so much happening in the world of AI. Um, one thing I would kind of start to finish on is the very old adage: beware the snake oil salesman. The ones that tell you that AI are your, you know, your silver bullet and your golden egg to everything, they're the ones to watch out for. They are not the exponents of truth. They cast a web of doubt and a web of lies that, I don't particularly agree in. And there are a lot of them at the moment, unfortunately. And that's purely because not enough people
yeah.
know enough about AI.
Yeah, Simon, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us today. It's been super valuable, super interesting conversation. Where can people find out more about you, Arthurian Labs, and the work that you guys are doing?
So first of all, it's been an absolute pleasure, Rob. I do quite a lot of these podcasts, as you know, and this has been one of the more interesting ones that I've done. It hasn't been as structured as some of the others, and I like that. As you can tell, I'm a very chatty person. So as you know, I'm the a co-founder of Arthurian Labs. You can find us at arthurian-labs.ai, and I'm sure you'll put a link on as well. Simon Cuthbert, I'm on LinkedIn. Again, if you want to listen to some crazy opinions, then you'll find me. I talk about a whole bunch of stuff from cybersecurity to clay pigeon shooting to martial arts. Lots of different topics I talk about on LinkedIn. Generally, when somebody says something that I don't agree with, the latest one this week being somebody telling people to use keys as a defense mechanism in martial arts. If you're being attacked, use your keys. Don't do that. But you can get me on there. Feel free to pop my cell number on the podcast as well. So I used to teach self-defense in martial arts many years ago, for quite a long time. So using keys
Brilliant.
is bad. So,
We need to do
yeah,
another show because there is so much
yeah,
to get into.
I've got a very eclectic career. I'm a lot older than I look, and I've done quite a lot. But you know, safe product is my savior, thanks to my daughter. So yeah, Arthurian Labs, Arthurian-labs.ai. I'm on LinkedIn, Simon.Cuthbert at Arthurian-labs.ai. Or my cell number. I would encourage anybody that is watching this or listening to this podcast that is involved in sales, that is involved in bid management. There are a lot of bid management platforms out there that are very, very helpful. I like to think that, without sounding like a sales guy, I like to think that ours is slightly different from everybody else's because we're a fact-based AI platform. And we will more than happily offer you a completely free trial for 14, 30, 60 days, run live bids through it, run previously submitted bids through to see what the response would be given, whether you won that bid, whether you didn't. And that gives you a really good basis to understand how powerful, our Bid Manager Pro platform will be for your organization. I'll stop trying to sound like a sales guy now because I've never been a good sales guy.
I don't believe that to be true at all. Brilliant. That's fantastic, Simon. I'll put all those links in the description. Thank you
Perfect.
again for your time. And we definitely need to have another conversation.
I will welcome it and look forward to it anytime, Rob. Thank you very much.